here
So,
too.
just for everyone who's joining now, I'm with Maria. And how do you say your surname? Macaya?
Macaya.
Macaya. Oh,
Yes.
lovely.
Mhm.
Yoga teacher from Barcelona, and hoping today to find out some more about her work, her fantastic work with yoga and mental health. Yeah, so I was just saying to Maria that I first discovered Maria's work. I love learning foreign languages, and I've been trying to learn Spanish for years. And whenever I go to Spain to see my family, I buy this magazine called Telva, which is like a fashion magazine. And I like looking at the pictures, and I like reading all the different articles to try to learn a bit of Spanish, a bit of practice. And I read an article, and I can't remember exactly what it was about. It was with Maria, with her sister, I think, her sister's house.
Exactly.
But you said a few things about yoga, and I thought, oh, that makes great sense. I like the sound of that.
I'll
And
have to say
so,
it again, see what I said to see
yeah,
what
have a look. I usually keep all those magazines at home in case I want to practice, but I couldn't find that one. And then ever since, I've just been following your yoga and what you do on Instagram, and I know that you do some really interesting work with mental health and yoga, which I thought was really, really worthwhile and interesting. And I just felt a curiosity towards you, and really so glad to be able to connect like this.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you for your time. So perhaps you could share a little bit more with us about what you're up to at the moment with your yoga and how you could be doing that.
Okay, so well, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Maria. You said so. I live in Barcelona currently, and I have 3 kids. I'm married with 3 kids, and I started practicing yoga 20 years ago. At a time when I was doing something else completely. I was an art critic at the time, and I was doing my master's. And my current husband said to me, "Let's do yoga," and I was like, "I don't do that type of thing. It's not my thing at all." And really, the time between then and when I was doing yoga all the time, I don't remember how much time passed, but I don't think it was very much. And so I've been practicing for 20 years, and I did my first teacher training like 15 years ago or so. But it was a teacher training that I never felt prepared me really for teaching. And I finally did the Jivamukti one. Do you know Jivamukti?
I don't know.
Jivamukti is a type of yoga which originates in New York. It's got 2 founders, Sharon Gannon and David Life, and they themselves they're quite responsible for bringing yoga as it is known in vinyasa form today here in the Western world. They brought music into classes. It's a vinyasa type of yoga, and we're all over the world. There's about 2,000 teachers in the world, and I'd been wanting to do that training for a long time because I believe that it is one of the best teacher trainings that there is around. And I did, and I've been teaching full time for about 5.5 years now. And now I'm still with Jivamukti. In fact, I'm also at their trainings. I mentor at their trainings. I'll be in India all of February, training people there for Jivamukti. And so that's an important part of my life is teaching for Jivamukti and mentoring people who are already teachers and getting them to be from the basic level teachers to becoming advanced teachers on a one-on-one basis. So I do that for them. So that's one part of my yoga life. And the other one, as you said, is I work with mental health. And I started a foundation in 2016 called Fundación Radika, Radika. And through it, we worked with informed yoga, which is a specific type of yoga that it has been proven scientifically to complement conventional therapy and render it more effective for people with mental disorders and/or distress. We work a lot with trauma, with depression, anxiety. We work with addiction. We work with people at risk or with illnesses such as cancer, or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, any type of disease that also affect, like physical disease that also affects the mental part of you, which basically is most intense diseases. Yes.
Wow.
So that's what I do.
And so what is the informed yoga?
Informed yoga, it really what changes is the way we teach and the way we set up the room. It is a slower form of yoga because the intention of it is allow the practitioner to connect with the present moment and to connect with their own needs. So in mental distress and in trauma, there's a thing called interoception. Do you know what interoception is? Interoception is your ability to know if you're hungry or if you're thirsty or if you need to go to the bathroom. It's your ability to connect with your body and realize its needs and what it's asking you for. Okay, so in trauma and in distress in general, this is very much affected. This obviously has repercussions in many other aspects of life, right? If you're not able to notice such small things such as that, it's difficult to know what pleases you and what doesn't, what you need and what you don't need, what you want and what you don't want. So we begin to work with interoception by giving you a space to connect with your body and becoming reconnected with the body, which often there's a huge disconnect with the body. And so it's a space for here and now, for connecting with your body and for empowerment, really. It's so in a Jivamukti class, I might tell you all the time what you need to do. I'll say right foot forward, right arm up, left arm up, right, like I'll be giving like general like instructions.
Yeah.
While in an informed yoga class, I'll always be giving you options. Everything will be an option. I'll say to you, you may stay here or come into a downward facing dog. Whenever you're ready, come into a downward facing dog. And everything is options. And the intention is for you to reconnect with what you need and knowing that you have the ability to give it to yourself. And doing that within the safety of a yoga room with people that you feel safe with, so that then this can translate into your regular life.
So giving them options so that they can then tune in and choose what's best.
So trauma, like if you look at trauma, any traumatic event is a loss of power, right? So it's maybe there's a natural disaster and all of a sudden you're like forced to act upon this thing that you can do nothing about, right?
Yeah.
Or you're attacked. And the more power you lose, the more likely you are to develop trauma from a traumatic event. Or a disease. Suddenly you're diagnosed with cancer and all of a sudden your body has betrayed you, hasn't told you that something's happened. Now you need to do what the doctors are telling you. They tell you where to be, when to be, and how to be. And your body is also telling you when to be, how to be, and where to be, right? And so it's a complete loss of power. What we're doing through informed yoga is giving you power again. And giving you a space where you're in control and you can choose. And that has proven to be very therapeutic.
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
It is.
Really fantastic. I was thinking about it seems like yoga's really popular,
Little.
or over the years, really popular. But even though it's popular, there are so many people who have never been to yoga, or who think yoga's not for them. Or maybe they, with a sort of typical imagery of yoga, is all these difficult poses and maybe the lifestyle of yoga of beads and incense sticks and things like that. Maybe people don't relate to that and they think, oh, maybe that's not for me. And so I think is a lot of room to talk about yoga to a wider range of people. What do you
it's expensive, right? That's another thing. So there is a part of the population that may not have access to it because it is considered an expensive activity, so as to say. So yeah, I agree with you, either because you're able to or because of some of the imagery of it that for some people might prove to be scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know, in England, we have some services that are put on by the NHS that you can access for free. And I haven't heard of yoga on the NHS just yet, but they are having some meditation on the NHS and different complementary therapies. I think that's a really nice thing as well, that it's increasing the access. Do you find that when you're meeting people who haven't done yoga before or who are coming from having been in some challenging situations, what do you tend to do to welcome people or make that space more?
So when we're talking about, let me get this clear. We're talking about Fundación Radika at the moment, right? We're not talking about Jivamukti.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so first of all, in yoga, in terms of informed yoga and in terms of complementary therapy, is just a movement-based practice. The whole like spiritual part of it, or the beats part of it, or all that does not come into this. Okay. It can for some people it can be re-traumatizing, right? So it's, again, we're being like, if I start speaking in Sanskrit, right? So you don't know what I'm saying, that can be pretty damn scary. So it is really a movement-based practice and a space for you to connect with your body and your body needs. And there is a and so that there's a theory, quite well founded, that I mean, we all know it, right? Something can be gut-wrenching, or your heart hurts, or you've got the world on your shoulders, right? They're all very physical explanations of emotional states. Yes. So what we're doing is we're tapping into that. And what it is really is just a movement-based practice. It happens on a mat. It uses yoga poses, simple ones, because we don't really do complicated ones. Because I don't want it to be like a form of exercise, because then you are too busy thinking about like being fit, or like, which can even be a form of evading, right? So some people, sports is a way of like forgetting their problems, right? I don't want you to, it's not that I want you to tackle your problems, but I don't want you to be evading them either. So I want you to be present with your current feelings and sensations now. Well, especially sensations, physical sensations now. So here, the word yoga comes in, but I would say that right now, the more reticent people for this are the therapists. I think that it is something that for some therapists it is more difficult to like be open to the fact that a movement-based practice can also be effective. I'm finding a little bit more reticence there until they try it.
Really?
And then when they try it, they change their minds. Or once they see what is happening in their clients, they change their minds.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
How did you come to start up your Radika Foundation? What was the enthusiasm there?
So I think that on the one hand, I've been, I guess, lucky to be exposed to situations where I've been helping people since I'm very young. So I went to boarding school when I was 10. And there I was the type of person that I just signed up for whatever was available. They needed somebody in the basketball team, and I would do basketball. They needed somebody to throw a javelin, and I was like, okay, I'll throw the javelin. I was just like, whatever, I'll do whatever you offer. And among all these things that were being offered, we had the opportunity to spend time. We had the opportunity to spend time with elderly people and care of them. And we had the opportunity to spend time, for example, with kids with autism or with kids with Down syndrome. We had the opportunity to go clean lakes and forests. And I signed up for all of it. And I loved it. And it is probably one of the things that I am most proud of my childhood, so as to say, or of my youth. And so that, and my mother worked for the Red Cross. And so I think that has always been in my surroundings and in my life. And Radika in itself, it starts for two reasons. There's an organization called Azahar, which is it's founded by another Jivamukti teacher called Yogeshwari. She works mostly in Cambodia and also works in Rwanda and has worked in Lebanon and Palestine. And what she does is she offers yoga, traditional yoga, to people, and also to people there as a way of building community, as a way of having better things to do. So that's another great aspect of yoga without the informed part, right? It can build community, it can give you good ways to spend your time. It is based on values that are non-harming and so on. And so she does this, and she also trains them as teachers. So she gives youth opportunities. She does peace training camps in order to give them tools to move on from their genocide past. I've been with her for a long time. She's both my teacher and my friend, and I've been helping her in different ways for quite a few years. And so we started talking about collaborating, and I said, for me, I feel that there's no need for me to go as far as Cambodia, that there is things to do more locally, right? In Spain, there's things to do. So there was that started. Ultimately, I ended up doing my own foundation just because of ease of boards and of movement and so on. And we still collaborate in ways. I'm going to Cambodia to train her teachers in informed yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I already went once and I'll be going again. And then there's a drug rehab center in Mallorca called Projecta OMA, which is one of the most successful centers in the world in terms of getting people out of addiction.
Wow.
Yes, it is. It is founded by a man I know. His name is Tomeu Catala. He's actually a Catholic priest, but many of the people that are in the program don't know that he's a Catholic priest. He really is a person that likes to help
Yeah.
and has set up this amazing organization that helps a lot of people. It is completely free of charge. It's by donation. You can pay or not pay, and the methodology has proven to be very effective.
Wow.
Been talking to him for a long time about coming there and doing yoga. And finally, the time came that I could go to Mallorca and teach the users yoga. And before going, I started looking up what I could offer for people with addiction. And that's when this whole world was opened up to me, that there was things that I shouldn't do and things that I should do. And that there was more to just, that I could do more than just offer a better way to spend your time and a way to build community, that there were things that I could do over and above that, such as use breath to reduce cravings, such as use the body to create grounding. Addiction is often an escape. It's a way to seek happiness through escape. And through this escape, we're not healing. So grounding, and that there were things that I could do within the practice that could help them therapeutically. And so I did. During those 10, 12 days, I taught 280 users at different levels. I mean, I had young people that had gone into drugs. I had people that were on methadone. I had people sitting on chairs that needed somebody next to them sitting on a chair because they might fall off their chair. There was people at all levels of their rehab process.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And here, for example, was a place where I found at the beginning that some of the therapists were like, oh, this yoga thing, not sure, it's not like whatever. They weren't totally for it. 2 days into it, the therapists started coming to the sessions.
Yeah.
As they started seeing that some of their users, some of the blockages that they'd been in for quite a while, suddenly they started to move beyond it. And the way that the users were reacting got them interested.
Yeah.
And started coming to the sessions themselves.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, and the effect that I had on people and the feedback that I got, I thought I need to get this to happen to more people.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to set up Radika Foundation and to start going to more trainings. And so since that was in 2016, and for 2 years I trained more, I practiced, I taught, I worked with women who've been abused, youth at risk, homeless, all like different populations. And Radika Foundation has really been more active only for a year. For a year, I've been, for the first 2 years was just me, getting better at it and knowing more and learning more. And now for a year, we've been training people in the methodology, and I now have teachers working with me, and we're teaching in different like either individuals or organizations or
Yeah, oh, fantastic. Well done.
Training people this weekend. This would be we're expanding to Madrid and Mallorca and teaching, and the training course in Madrid this weekend is for that.
That's fantastic. Well done. Do you the work that you're doing, how do people access it? How do people access the foundation? Can they refer themselves, or is it only private, or do you sometimes in hospitals? Or
so yes, there's several ways. So there's privates, definitely. Either because they contact me privately or therapists who recommend it. There's certain people that it's even more recommended for, especially if the body is somehow involved. Or there are some treatments such as EMDR. I don't know if you know EMDR. It works very, very well with EMDR. Because it also uses the body sensations as part of the therapy process. So either therapists or the client themselves will contact us, and we might work with them individually. In terms of groups, At the moment, we're working with institutions that already work with with people who might benefit from our services, such
Yeah.
as we're working with prisoners that are in the process of reinsertion, or we work with refugees, right, who've suffered trauma. We work with addiction. We work with different institutions that are already supporting the population that might benefit from our services. And now we're in the process of starting to offer classes to the public that you're able to go in on your own free choice.
Yeah.
For me, yes, and then as part of the therapy process, we're also in the process of setting up. So we're working with private clients. For me, the therapeutic process really, for some people, can be starting as a private class. So if you've suffered trauma, for example, just having your own space to connect with yourself, where you begin to trust and love yourself and trust the teacher, the person, and that's already in that space. And that's the step one. Step two is we create a group where we know you will feel safe.
Yeah.
So, for example, if a woman has been raped, I would only put her with women, for example, or so making sure that it's a group where you will feel safe. And so expand your group of safety from just you and the teacher to a group of people, but that you know has been selected for you.
Yeah.
That you might have something that if you then decide to talk to somebody, you will feel understood.
Yeah.
And then from there to an open Radika group of people that are also, that there is no stigma, that they are aware that mental distress is a reality, that they're willing to talk about it, that they have the vocabulary to talk about it, that they have the empathetic level to talk about it, and to still feel supported, and then move on to open classes.
Yeah. That's really fantastic. And I love your enthusiasm. It's wonderful. Yeah. The it reminds me, some years ago, I used to work in mental health, and I worked for the charity Mind in the UK. Have you heard of Mind?
No, I know of the Minded Institute, but please tell me about Mind.
Yes, it's I think it's one of the biggest mental health charities in the UK. It's a big organisation, and they have regional branches all around the UK. So you have North London, Essex, Hertfordshire, different towns or counties actually, where they have a Mind. And the way that the funding is distributed is quite unequal around the country. So Mind, you may have Mind have little franchises all over the country, and Mind in Essex, which is where I'm from and where I worked, they have at the time they had a lot of resources, a lot of funding, lots of services, all different types of therapies. And Mind in the Midlands, which is where I live now, they have just closed because they have such a few resources. Anyway, so while I was there, I was kind of, I suppose, in charge of setting up a new poetry therapy, which is short stories and poetry in groups. And it was a really, really fantastic experience. And similarly to the way that you describe, when I first set it up, it was just me. And I went off to do the training and to come back and then set it up for Mind in the area. And we had a small group of people who came once a week for 2 hours, and we'd read short stories and poetry and talk about it. And everybody who came to the group would be different. You know, people referred by the doctor, all different life situations, well-being, everything different. And it was just me to begin with, and it was difficult to explain to people the benefits of it, because I suppose it's quite novel, really, reading poetry and as a therapeutic device. But over time, and I went round to visit all the doctors and all the schools and explain how it works and why it's good. And similarly to you, I was very enthusiastic and still am about poetry.
Beautiful.
And so it's not difficult, really, when you're enthusiastic to kind of, it's quite, what's the word? It's catchy.
Let me close the door 1 second. Let me see that. There, I'm back with you.
That's okay. So I similarly went around to tell everyone about it, and then social workers and different people would come to the groups with the users who they were accompanying, and they kind of started to come and check it out, really, and then over time they became so popular that we were completely full and couldn't take any more people in the groups. and the doctors would phone the boss of Mind and say, why can't we get people into the group? They're always full. She said, well, we just don't have enough funding to have more than, one group. And somebody applied on my behalf for an award and a grant, and we won £50,000.
Well done.
And yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? To expand. And then we had, as you say, more teachers and more groups available. And it was just a really wonderful experience because it was beautiful, yeah. And the having something that was, I suppose, quite a new thing and being able to explore it. And it was not only did I see, similar to how you describe it, transformations in others, but in myself as well. It was just such a nourishing experience, I feel, all round. And since then, they've been exploring, as far as I know, different variations of that. So writing as a therapy and things like that, which I think is really, really beautiful. So I had a similar experience, and I think it's so worthwhile to have. And one thing I noticed actually is when I left there and I moved, I realised that so many of the beautiful and nourishing activities and therapies that were available in an NHS setting, so for people who had referred themselves or been given a referral, weren't routinely made available to my colleagues and friends in the City of London who weren't accessing NHS mental health services. For what, they weren't formally given a referral, but they still had some suffering, while they were at their job in the city in finance, and they didn't really have access to those sort of groups and things like that. And that's why I started my blog, as a way to share all the things I was doing at Mind with a wider audience. But it's beautiful, isn't it? All these different
I love the story.
Yeah. Do you do some of your time you do the Radika, and other times you do Jivamukti?
Yes. I also work with sports professionals. I have another thing called Radika Sport.
Yep.
And I work with sports professionals, elite sports.
Yeah.
And I give them complimentary training.
Wow. So how do they respond to that?
Well, they usually come to me, so they respond well.
It's
a choice. The truth is that because I don't have much time, because I'm pretty full between Jivamukti and Fundación Radika, it's not something that I really promote, but it's there, and people find out about me, and so they come to me. So they respond very well because they've chosen to come to me. But it's actually a work that I also love. It's different. They usually come to me because of anxiety. It's probably the top reason that they're coming to me. And we end up working on that. We end up working on anxiety. We end up working a lot on breath work. You realize that we don't know how to breathe at all. Even when you're in such intense need of breath as when you're competing in sports. And we also work mobility. So, and I love that work too.
That's wonderful. And do you what do you practice do you have like a practice that you do to stay well and stay connected? Do you do yoga yourself, or running, or
I do yoga every day basically. What would 5-6 days a week? Definitely I do yoga myself. I either practice by myself, I practice Iyengar. I learn a lot from Iyengar and I love that practice. And then I'm also a swimmer, so I swim like open sea marathons and stuff like that.
Wow.
And that for me is another type of meditation. I meditate, and teaching for me is another type of meditation. I love teaching. And I like to read, I like to walk, I like to cook, I like to I'm lucky that I have yoga is probably my main outlet of place to go to for self-care, so as to say, but I'm lucky that I have quite a few things that I can resort to if I need to. So yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And you live in Barcelona?
I live in Barcelona since 5 years. Yes, we've been here for 5 years. Yeah.
You settling in? You like it?
I love it. Actually, it's a very good quality of life. Have you been to Barcelona?
I have been, yeah. Been once. Yeah, I really liked it. I went to Macba. Is that Macba?
Yes.
Yeah. Loved it. Yeah, really good.
Good.
Is there a yoga community in Barcelona?
Yes, there's a lot of yoga centers. In fact, people sometimes say to me, Maria, why don't you open a center? I'm like, if I do anything, is I'll close centers because there are too many.
I
There are,
remember.
there are too many centers. There are too many centers, and it is something that like and there are too many centers and I do worry about the quality of teaching in many cases. I do think that because teacher trainings have become the most profitable source of income for yoga studios. Yoga studios are very quick to want to do teacher trainings because it's a way to survive. And I'm not sure that everybody's always ready to be teaching others. So it is something that worries me a little bit, but there is a great yoga community. I have a great both Jivamukti. There's a Jivamukti Center opened by Olga, who's a friend and colleague and boss, I guess, because I work at her center. And also the Radika community I love it. I'm very lucky to have those communities. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I remember I went to Barcelona, it must have been about 10 years ago, and maybe more, but maybe 10 years ago. And I was surprised how many vegan restaurants there were.
Mm-hmm.
There were lots of vegan restaurants and, like conscious cafes. And this was before there were a lot of those in where I was in England. It was, maybe 10 years, maybe just under 10 years.
Oh God, then now you wouldn't believe it now.
Really?
When I arrived in Barcelona 5 years ago, I was like, being vegan was so difficult.
Oh, really?
I was eating like pimientos de padrón and asparagus. And now really there's a lot of choice. And not only is there a lot of choice, but there's a lot of nice choice. So there was choice, but it was a little like grungy, not like, but now there's all levels of vegan restaurants or vegan conscious restaurants. So it's great.
Yeah, it did look that way. And what about you used to be an art critic?
Yes, I used to be an art critic, yes.
And so do you feel that you have any, how do the two interests that you have had connect with the art and the yoga?
If you see the path, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I started as an art critic, and one day I realized that art criticism wasn't really my thing. That just the whole there was a lot of egos involved that didn't quite work with my wanting what made me happy, I guess. But what I realized is that I love to write, which is what I was also loving about what you were saying about the work that you were doing at Mind, because I am a deep believer that for some people yoga will work, for some people writing will work, for some people art will work, for some people dance will work, and that the more complementary therapies we have, the better, because it will appeal to those people that it serves best, right?
Yeah.
So one day I realized that in art criticism, what I loved best was writing. I used to love telling it, speaking out my writing and seeing if I like the flow of it, and I really like writing. So then I switched to writing.
Yeah.
So I started writing, and I've got short stories published, and I've got a novel that's halfway written, and in my writing I started with memoir, and then I switched to fiction, and memoir was I think like a more therapeutic thing for me in many ways. And then when I started fiction, my characters were all the mind was it was intense.
Yeah.
It got to a point where their mind was so intense that I had to take all of my characters and close them up in a room and say, leave me alone. I can't take you anymore. You're driving me crazy. So the whole mind thing, and that fiction opened up to me the ability to create and to I've always read a lot. I love to read. So then doing this mental health thing is, so I've always been interested at the end. So it was like art criticism, writing, the mind, and here I am today.
Oh, wow. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I love the way you followed your enthusiasm along the different change of flow of where the interest is. It's beautiful. So is there anything else I haven't asked that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not sure. It'll probably come up to me after.
Okay. Yeah. If not, you can always send it to me in writing, and I'll put it with the video. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for reaching out. And I enjoyed conversation immensely, and I'm going to look up your work that you've been doing.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, thank you. The last question I had actually was, I thought perhaps if you could share maybe just a couple of your tips for the person who might be listening to this, who is either recovering from a trauma or looking after someone in some way who's recovering and thinking about going to yoga but a bit nervous, or not yoga, movement, some sort of movement class. What would you say to them?
Okay, how long do you have? Do you have 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
There's no limit, you know.
Okay. Will you join me and we'll do a little session?
Yeah. What should I do?
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'd like you to place your hands like so that they're rounded, like they're cupped, and just begin to tap your forehead with the tips of your fingers. And now move on to your scalp and begin to move both to the sides of your scalp and the top of your scalp. And maybe when you're ready, move on to the back of your scalp. And when you're ready, begin to move forward and come to the cheeks. And you might stay in one place of your cheeks or move up and down. Maybe even reaching the chin. And when you're ready, maybe move on to the sides of the neck. And either stay here or move on to the top of the chest and just tap. You might just stay on the part of the chest or even move a little bit towards the shoulders and just notice any sensations that you feel with this tapping. The on and off of the fingers, the strength of the tap. And when you're ready, begin to slow this down and maybe place the hands either on top of the table, if that's what you've got in front of you, or on your thighs. And you could either stay here or bring the left hand onto the right knee and the right hand to the back of your chair and turn to gaze behind you. The eyes might be open or closed. And either stay here or come to center and maybe change sides. Maybe looking at what is around you, at the colors. And when you're ready, coming back to center. And maybe placing your hands on top of your thighs. I'm going to invite you to notice what parts of the hands are touching the thighs and what parts of the hands are not touching the thighs. The hands might stay still, or you might press a little stronger with the fingertips and notice that sensation. And when you're ready, let that pressing go. And maybe either stay like that or do the same thing again. And notice if all 5 fingers are pressing or if just some of them are pressing. Noticing maybe whether there's any changes in the skin and in the thigh as you press and let go. And the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to invite you to place your right hand underneath your left armpit and your left hand on your right shoulder. And maybe allowing the arms to relax here. This is what's known as the self-hug. It is a form of self-containment. Containment allows us to feel protected and soothed. And notice if there's any sensations as you do this hug. To also let you know that the inhale is an activating breath and the exhale is a relaxing breath. So you can always tap into your nervous system by either extending the inhale or extending the exhale. So if you want to liven up, you extend the inhale. And if you want to relax, you extend the exhale. So let's try the relax one now that we're doing the containment self-hug. Maybe counting your inhale. It might be a count of 4. And I'm going to invite you to allow the exhale to be a little bit longer than that. It might be 6 or 8. Something that is longer than the inhale, but that does not feel forced. The breath might be through the nose, or it might be even through the nose on the inhale and out through the mouth. And when you're ready, bringing the hands back to the thighs. And if your eyes were closed, you might want to open them and take a moment to look around and see what's in front of you, the colors, whether there's any shape that stands out.
Oh.
Here we are.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Really lovely. Well, there you go. If anyone's watching, I'm sure they enjoyed that and they'll get a good idea of what it will be like. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to spend a bit of time and to understand more about what you're doing with your yoga and your foundation and in your life in Barcelona.
Thank you, Emma.
How can we support you? Should we follow you somewhere or?
Yeah, so there is my foundation. I do everything in Spanish and English. Everything that we do is in both languages. So, and what we try to do, also one of the things that we work is on stigma. So we really work to try to reduce stigma, believing that stigma is a big issue when we come to mental health, because one of the big symptoms of mental distress and disorder is loneliness. And I'm a deep believer that if we eliminate stigma and people are able to talk about it, have the vocabulary to talk about it, then one of the huge symptoms of mental disorder will be eliminated and or decreased. So what we do is it through our social media. We write blogs. We try to inform and give people the vocabulary and the knowledge to be able to speak about it, and the freedom to not be afraid of speaking about mental health. So please speak about mental health. When somebody is suffering, listen to them, and don't judge them, but just be prepared to listen and accept that what they're feeling is real. And that would be a huge effect. So please go for no more stigma, and follow us and support us. And if you know of anybody that needs our help, do let them contact us. And otherwise, there's a great center in London called the Minded Institute, which I highly recommend. They do amazing work. And and do things like what you're doing. Find other ways to support people, because at least 1 out of 4 people suffers from mental disorder every year. So that means a lot of us. So if we support them, then we're going way ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you to everyone for listening. I'm sure you will have found that so interesting. So